Hi there, this is Haley Hogan, and I'm here with our post-construction Stormwater BMPs Masterclass Series speakers, Steve Polk, Jeff Bruce, Gene Rovac, and Ted Hartzig to talk about our upcoming 5-session series. So let's start with you, Steve. Tell us what makes this Masterclass series with the four of you unique.
I think what makes it unique, I researched this when I started putting the program together and was not able to find another program like it. There are a lot of stormwater quality programs that would be a 101 course, and if we were in college, what we wanted to do was take this to the next level. There really aren't very many programs that would be a 201 or a 301, or certainly a graduate level course. Our long-term goal for this program among the faculty was to develop a program that would take practitioners to that level of knowledge and understanding about these systems.
This series is going to provide valuable information for our attendees. The first session covers the fundamentals of BMPs. Can you give us an idea of what you'll be covering here?
First session really starts with why do we have this in the first place? Where did it start? And it started back in the 1960s, and I will be covering what's transpired since that time at a very basic level, just so people understand the progression and the way the regulations have changed over the years. And then we'll be looking at how do you know if your particular area is subject to the NPDES regulations and how to find that out. We'll talk about the importance of understanding your local regulations, how you go about finding what those regulations are, and then we will get into some basic discussion about what green infrastructure is as a lead-in to the second program, which will focus specifically on green infrastructure.
Great! It's important to keep your site compliant with your jurisdictional regulations. The next session in the series, Green Infrastructure, will go into the different tools and applications you can use for your site. So Jeff, you'll be presenting this one. Would you give us a preview of what you'll be covering and what green infrastructure is?
Well, there's a wide range of ways green infrastructure is used and defined within different contexts, but we're going to generally define it as the goal of increasing vegetation in the urban areas. So it's a way of lining urban development with natural systems and adding things that grow within it.
It'll be a good chance for everyone to get up to speed on the green infrastructure options and applications out there. What are some of the benefits that a site can gain from implementing green infrastructure?
The main benefits: we can mitigate the human impact, we can restore connections with nature through green infrastructure. It can be used as a tool, as a working landscape to provide work for us in terms of delivering ecological services and benefits, and it's pretty to look at, and it provides recreational value within our cities and our lives.
Thanks, Jeff. We're looking forward to your green infrastructure session. Moving on to the third session in the series, BMP Design and Selection, we'll be diving into hydrology, hydraulics, and computer modeling with Gene Rovac. So Gene, what will you be covering in this third session?
Yes, in this section we're going to cover really how do we select BMP, what do we look for, and then how do we really know that the one we're going to choose is something that's going to be useful and it's going to do the job we're hoping that it's going to do. So we want to talk about the tools that we'll use so that we know that we're providing what we need to provide. And we'll cover a lot of those tools, what they are, how they're used, and some of their strengths and weaknesses.
It's good to have that reassurance that our BMPs will do what they were selected to do. Tell us what tools our attendees will take away from this session.
What we really want to learn is what are the tools available, what are the issues we face, and we know going back it's who are we serving, we have criteria that are established, we have agencies who we need to satisfy their criteria and their requirements, all the way from the broadest level, the EPA, down to the specific municipality. Sometimes it's a DOT that has their own requirements on top of that. So we want to make sure that we're performing something, doing it in the way that the agencies that we or our builders or our developers, they're responsible to it. So we need to make sure that we are doing that. We also don't just want to comply with the letter of some regulation, but we want to do it in a way that we know this is actually performing that job and doing it well, so that we are controlling runoff, we're reducing the amount of pollution that escapes a facility that we're trying to control. We want to do that, and then the other thing is, okay, what do we have to help us do this? And these are the various procedures and the models that we've talked about. We've given you some of the high points and possibly some of the low points, or the pitfalls you might find in some of the particular methods.
Thanks, Gene. This is good information to have to ensure that the BMPs installed will function successfully. The next session in the series goes into the construction methods and techniques. So Ted, what will you be covering in this 4th session?
Looking at construction of stormwater BMPs and how it's not construction as usual. It requires paying attention to details, to making sure that the grading is just right, because we have to make sure that water will flow to, into, and then out of, if necessary, the BMPs, and that water flows in the right places and the right rates. But also the construction is very important to get it right so that water will infiltrate into the soil or into sub-drainage systems the way it's supposed to. In doing that, there are a lot of little things. Making sure not only that the soil is graded correctly, but that it is not compacted, that we have the right biological systems in place as well as the chemical balance. It's understanding those nuances. Then beyond that, moving from there, it's also getting the right plant in the right place. If you put the wrong plant in the wrong place, the system will fail. If you don't get the soil right, the system will fail. So it's a very detailed balance of soil, water, and vegetation to make sure the system works. That's primarily what we'll be covering.
Great. Adding BMPs in is a lot more than your standard soil grading and planting project. Tell us why it's important to establish BMPs at any site correctly the first time they are installed.
Well, just like any construction, you don't want to have to go back and rebuild it. But the other part is, if a system fails, especially with stormwater BMPs, the perception of the owner or the public is, look, it didn't work, so it must not be any good. So we want to make sure that it works the first time so that people understand how the system works, that it is correct, and that it indeed is a very valuable addition to the, to an urban infrastructure, to stormwater management, but also to the aesthetic of a neighborhood or the environment in which it's set.
Thanks, Ted. It's definitely better to spend time doing it right the first time than to have to spend time and resources fixing it up later. This brings us to our last session, BMP inspection and maintenance with Steve Polk. So Steve, what will our attendees take away from this final session?
I think from the last session and really from the entire series, I think what we want them to take away is a solid foundation, a good understanding of these systems, how they work, the design implications, and how to get a good design, what the construction issues are, and how to make sure that the contractors are dealing with issues as they go through the construction process. We want them to understand how collaborative this process has become. Engineers, by and large, over the years have operated in more of a silo where the engineer does their engineering thing and then turns it over to a contractor who takes care of the construction. We need to be talking among ourselves much more regularly during the design and construction phase. The designers need to be involved during construction, and the contractor needs to be involved during design, because a lot of decisions are being made that impact the cost, both the first cost and the operating cost for these systems. We want them to understand what works and what doesn't, and if it doesn't work, why. And we want them to know what to be on the lookout for when they're involved at any phase of the development of a project that includes stormwater quality.
Thanks, Steve. This last session is full of valuable money-saving information to get you through inspections and avoid major maintenance. Well, that's all we have time for today. You can sign up for this 5-session post-construction Stormwater BMPs Masterclass series with our experts, Steve Polk, Jeff Bruce, Gene Rovac, and Ted Hartzig at forestryuniversity.net, as well as our library of 225 courses, or check out our other clips at our Forestry University YouTube channel.